Boomers said I'd never own a house. Then I bought theirs with crypto. I still remember the day my Uncle Rick laughed in my face. We were at my cousin's graduation barbecue in suburban Connecticut, the kind of neighborhood where every lawn looks like it's been measured with a ruler. I just mentioned wanting to buy a house someday. In this market? He snorted, beer sloshing in his red plastic cup. Not a chance, kiddo. Your generation is too busy with your avocado toast and subscription services. We had to work for what we got. I looked around at his 4-bedroom colonial with the 3-car garage. Uncle Rick had bought it in 1985 for what would now be a down payment on a studio apartment. He'd been a mid-level manager at an insurance company his entire career. Nothing special, just good timing. The housing market is completely different now, I tried explaining. The average home price compared to income is... Excuses. He cut me off. That's your generation's problem. Always looking for handouts instead of putting in the work. The other boomers nodded in agreement, a chorus of self-satisfaction under the suburban sun. My parents stayed quiet. They'd downsized years ago, unable to keep up with property taxes after Dad's company outsourced his department. That night, in my rented apartment in Boston, 800 square feet split with 2 roommates, consuming 40% of my software developer salary, I stared at my investment portfolio. It wasn't stocks or bonds or anything traditional. It was crypto. I'd started investing during my senior year of college, back in 2017. Small amounts at first, putting in $50 here, $100 there. Everyone told me it was gambling, that it would all crash to zero. Sometimes they were right about the crashing part. But I kept researching, kept learning, kept investing in projects I believed had actual technological value. By 2022, my portfolio had grown significantly, and then crashed again during the great crypto winter. But I held on, believing in the technology and the future it represented. While my friends panic sold at the bottom, I kept dollar cost averaging into my favorite projects. And then, in early 2024, everything changed. Institutional adoption finally happened. The regulatory framework clarified. And my portfolio, the one everyone had mocked, suddenly put me in a financial position I'd never imagined possible. That's when I saw the listing. A beautiful craftsman in a Boston suburb. 4 bedrooms, mature trees, walking distance to the commuter rail. The owners? A retired couple moving to Florida. The price? Steep, but now within my reach. The seller's name on the listing stopped me cold. Richard and Patricia Winters. Uncle Rick. The housing market in Boston had become a battlefield. Each open house felt like the Hunger Games, but with checkbooks instead of weapons. I'd attended several, standing in living rooms alongside 50 other hopefuls, all knowing the bids would go hundreds of thousands over asking. The desperation was palpable. Uncle Rick's house wasn't officially on the market yet. The listing was in coming soon status. A preview before the weekend open house that would surely bring the usual circus of desperate millennials and investment firms buying up residential properties. I called my real estate agent, Maya, immediately. "We need to see this house tomorrow," I said, "before it hits the open market." "That's your uncle's place?" she asked, surprised after I explained the connection. "The one who said you'd never be able to afford a home?" "The very same." Maya pulled some strings, and the next day we were walking through the Winters residence. The selling agent didn't mention I was related to the owners, and I didn't volunteer the information. The house was exactly what I'd expected from Uncle Rick, immaculate but dated. Crown molding, solid hardwood floors, and plenty of space, but also floral wallpaper in the bathrooms and a kitchen last updated during the Clinton administration. "They've maintained it beautifully," Maya said, "but it needs updating. That's actually good for you. It might scare off some buyers looking for turnkey." As we walked the property, I felt a strange mix of emotions. This was the house where I'd been lectured about my generation's laziness, where I'd been told I'd never achieve what they had, and now I was considering buying it. "What's their situation?" I asked the selling agent. "Why Florida?" "Retiring," she said. "They bought a condo in a community down in Naples. They're motivated to sell quickly to finalize that purchase." I nodded, thinking about the crypto market's recent surge. While traditional markets had stagnated with inflation concerns, my alternative investments had multiplied. The money I'd put into Ethereum and several Layer 2 projects had appreciated so much that my down payment, once a distant dream, was now sitting in my wallet. "I want to make an offer," I said to Maya when we were alone. "A strong one, contingent on inspection but with a fast close. And I want to offer something else. They can take whatever they want with them, but I'll handle anything they leave behind. No need for them to clean out 30 years of accumulation." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That's generous. Most buyers want a broom-clean house." "I know what it's like to move," I said, remembering helping my parents downsize. "And I know they're in a hurry." What I didn't say was how satisfying it would feel to make life easier for Uncle Rick while simultaneously becoming the owner of a house he said I'd never be able to afford. That evening, as rain tapped against my apartment windows, I submitted my offer. $50,000 over asking, fast closing, flexible move-out terms for the sellers. Then I waited, watching the crypto markets continue their steady climb on my second monitor while I worked. The call came 2 days later. I was in the middle of a Zoom meeting, my camera off while a product manager droned on about quarterly objectives. Maya's name flashed on my phone. I stepped away from my computer, heart pounding. "They've accepted," she said without preamble. "You got the house." I leaned against my kitchen counter, legs suddenly weak. "No counteroffers? No bidding war? Your terms were too good. They need the quick close for their Florida purchase." The selling agent said they're relieved to be working with a serious buyer who can actually follow through. I smiled at the irony. Uncle Rick had no idea who the buyer was. He'd accepted an offer from one of those supposedly financially irresponsible millennials he loved to criticize. "There's something else," Maya continued. "They want to meet you before closing. Apparently, they've been in that house for 32 years and want to pass the torch personally." My stomach dropped. "Is that necessary?" "Not legally, no. But it's common with longtime owners. They're emotionally attached to the house." I agreed to the meeting, both dreading and anticipating Uncle Rick's reaction. The inspection went smoothly. The house was built like a tank compared to modern construction, and soon it was time for the awkward encounter. We met at a coffee shop near their home, soon to be my home. I arrived early, choosing a table in the corner. When they walked in, Aunt Patricia spotted me first. Her expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Jason, you're the buyer." Uncle Rick turned, coffee order forgotten as he stared at me. "What is this? Some kind of joke?" "No joke," I said, gesturing for them to sit. "I'm buying your house. The funds have already been verified by the lender." They sat down slowly, both looking like they'd seen a ghost. "But how?" Uncle Rick finally asked. "You work in computers or something, right?" "Software development," I corrected. "And investments. What kind of investments could possibly—" He stopped himself, eyes narrowing. "Not that internet money thing you were always talking about?" I nodded. "Cryptocurrency. I started small in college and kept at it. The market recognized the value eventually." Aunt Patricia looked between us, sensing the tension. "Well, I think it's wonderful," she said. "The house staying in the family, in a way." Uncle Rick was quieter now, studying me with new eyes. "So all that digital nonsense actually paid off?" "It did," I said simply. "Technology changes things, creates new opportunities." He absorbed this, fingers tapping against his coffee cup. "You're paying cash?" "A significant down payment. The rest is a conventional mortgage. My debt-to-income ratio is excellent." I couldn't help throwing in the financial terminology, watching him process that I understood the world of home buying perfectly well. "Well," he finally said, "I suppose congratulations are in order." He didn't look at me as he said it. The rest of the meeting was brief and awkward. We discussed practical matters, where to find the water shutoff valve, which floorboards creaked, the temperamental garage door opener. As we prepared to leave, Aunt Patricia hugged me impulsively. "Take good care of it," she whispered. "We raised our family there." "I will," I promised and meant it. Despite everything, this wasn't about revenge. It was about proving something, to them, to myself, to everyone who said it couldn't be done. Uncle Rick shook my hand stiffly. As our eyes met, I saw something I'd never seen there before. Uncertainty. Moving day arrived on a crisp autumn morning. The leaves were turning, creating a postcard-perfect New England scene as the movers unloaded my modest possessions into the spacious house. My furniture, which had seemed adequate in my apartment, now looked lost in the larger rooms. True to our agreement, Uncle Rick and Aunt Patricia had taken only what they wanted for their Florida condo. They'd left behind furniture they said wouldn't fit their new place. A dining room set, some bookshelves, a comfortable armchair I remembered falling asleep in during family gatherings. As I directed the placement of boxes and arranged my home office, my phone buzzed with messages from friends planning a housewarming party. Many were still renting, some had moved to more affordable cities, a few had given up on the American dream of homeownership entirely. I understood their choices. I'd just gotten lucky with my investments. Or maybe not lucky, persistent. I'd researched. I'd taken calculated risks. I'd ignored the skeptics. The last box unpacked, I wandered through my new home, still unable to believe it was mine. In the kitchen, I found a note on the refrigerator in Aunt Patricia's handwriting. Welcome home. The oven runs hot. Reduce recipes by 25 degrees. I smiled, oddly touched by this small kindness. That evening, as dusk settled over the neighborhood, I sat on the back deck with a glass of wine. A neighbor waved from their yard, a young family that had moved in a year ago. I waved back, making a mental note to introduce myself properly. My phone rang. Uncle Rick's name appeared on the screen. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Hey. His voice sounded different, less certain than I remembered. Just checking that everything's okay with the house. Everything's fine, I said. Thank you for leaving the dining set. It's perfect for the space. Patricia insisted. A pause. Listen, I've been thinking about what you said, about opportunities changing. I waited, unsure where this was going. I still don't understand all that crypto stuff, he continued. But maybe I was wrong about some things. Your generation is facing different challenges than we did. It wasn't quite an apology, but from Uncle Rick, it was significant. The housing market is just one example, I said, keeping my tone neutral. Each generation has its own path. Yeah. Another pause. Anyway, Patricia wants to know if you'd like her grandmother's recipe for lasagna. Apparently, it works well in that oven if you make the adjustment she mentioned. I'd like that, I said, watching the last light fade from the sky over my new backyard. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness, thinking about cycles and changes. Uncle Rick's generation had benefited from economic tailwinds that pushed them forward. Mine had faced headwinds that required finding alternative routes. In the end, we'd both reached similar destinations, just by very different paths. I took a deep breath of the cool evening air, filled with the scent of fallen leaves and possibility. The house around me represented more than a real estate transaction. It was a torch being passed, however reluctantly. Tomorrow, I'd begin making it truly mine. New paint colors, updated fixtures, perhaps solar panels on the roof. The bones of the house would remain, but its future would reflect a different vision, just as the financial landscape had evolved beyond what previous generations could have imagined. As I finally went inside, closing the door on the autumn night, I felt a sense of completion. Not because I'd proven Uncle Rick wrong, but because I'd proven myself right. The path to homeownership hadn't disappeared, it had simply changed, requiring new tools to navigate. And I had found my way home.